Alright, you guys, we have a lot to talk about. This new version of self-driving isn't just an update that gives autopilot quicker reactions and better decision making. I mean, it definitely has those things, but beyond that, this version feels alive in ways that I have honestly been having a tough time explaining. You're just gonna have to see it for yourself. Before we get into some of the highlights from my drive so far, and trust me, I got some crazy ones, I'd like to share some clips from the community to kind of give an overview of where I think we're at right now in the grand scheme of things, because things are getting absolutely wild. Here is Dirty Tesla taking version 14 through a drive-thru, and not only is the car following the cars in front of it properly, it's also stopping so that he can give his order, moving forward when he's done, driving up to the window and waiting until he pays and gets his food before driving away. Probably just a one-off and lucky, right? Nope. There is clip after clip of the car not only handling drive-thrus correctly, but handling multi-story parking garages, and then even positioning itself closer to the ticket booths when leaving so the person inside the car can push the button and enter the ticket or whatever while still seated. And the big question here is how? How does it understand the nuance of all these things? Here's another example of Devon taking it to a busy Costco parking lot, and you can see it literally ignoring its own navigation route and going up and down the rows of parking one by one to find a spot, and even pulls in forward because, you know, backing in at Costco won't let you access the trunk, and we kind of need that. So I'll ask again, how? Do you think the Tesla AI team trained on every drive-thru, every parking structure, and every Costco parking lot in the United States? Or could we be seeing the very first glimpses of a truly generalized artificial intelligence navigating its way through the world? And trust me, I don't say that lightly. I know how crazy it sounds, and there's a lot of debate about what AGI even means. In fact, I made this video several different times trying to downplay some of the things, but the more clips I watch and the more personal experience I have with this version, I really think we have to start asking questions about what makes something alive in the first place. This is Alan Turing. He's a British scientist who published a paper in 1950 later called the Turing test, which is basically a human asking a computer questions to tell if the human was able to tell if it was talking to a machine. This was the standard of what a generalized computer intelligence might look like since 1950. I remember thinking about it a lot growing up, and then rather suddenly, not only did we pass the Turing test with the invention of transformers in 2017, which gave birth to large language models like ChatGPT, we absolutely blew through it. And we are now at the point just a few years later where we have personally owned robot cars that aren't just driving themselves through the world, but seemingly understanding the world in a way that I don't think we can yet explain. And to give you just a tiny bit more perspective of how insane things are getting lately, before we get into version 14 stuff, I promise you we will. Man, this stuff has just been on my mind lately and it's been freaking me out a little. 1 year ago today marks the 1-year anniversary that I attended the We Robot event. The goal of this event was to give us a glimpse of what a generalized AI future could look like, with autonomous cars driving people around, humanoid robots interacting and walking among the crowd, and at the time, there was a lot of doubt about Elon's timeline of having driverless cars on the roads, quote-unquote, next year, like he said for almost every year for the past decade. But guess what? Here we are a year later, and we have driverless Teslas operating in at least one major US city. And I can already hear the comments like, yeah, it's only one city and there's a person in the passenger seat supervising, and that's fine, but what do you think things are going to look like another year from now? Just some food for thought. And I know things can seem like they're going rather slow sometimes. I mean, I think we spent 310 days on version 13.2, which was like the longest gap between self-driving releases ever, but if you just zoom out the tiniest little bit, the progress in AI and especially self-driving has been exponential. It wasn't that long ago that I posted this clip on X of version 13.2 finding a parking spot in a very busy parking lot. You can see it kind of detected this truck backing out, waited for him to fully back out, and actually nosed into the parking spot perfectly. This post has been seen by over 1 million people, and that's because it was absolutely amazing, and it's not something that version 13.2 typically does. I mean, it's able to do it sometimes, but definitely Unfortunately, not a lot of consistency. Then just a few months later with version 14, we are now able to tell the car specifically how we want it to behave when we get to where we're going, including parking at parking lots. And it is no longer absolutely incredible. It's just part of the everyday experience. And this trend is just going to continue and get better and better. In my last video where I was stress testing Robotaxi, I purposely blocked it from entering the court where I asked it to pick me up from, and when it couldn't make it after multiple attempts of trying, it kind of gave up and just adjusted its pickup location to the next nearest point down the road, which I thought showed some really incredible decision making, because this is an area that current autonomous cars have a lot of trouble with. They don't mind stopping in the middle of the road or blocking traffic or just doing some pretty robotic things that humans would just never do. Version 14 brings this ability to the absolute next level. You can see our destination is off to the right here, and we're pulling over, but it kind of seems to realize that if we stop here, we'd be blocking the flow of traffic. So it tries again to pull up a little bit further on the road, but even when it's mounting the curb here, it's still not far enough off the road. And then incredibly, it decides to go across the street and then back along the edge of the road to get out of the way as much as it possibly can. And I know there's a lot of people saying, oh, you shouldn't park that direction, but in this area, there's just cars everywhere. You can see the majority of the cars behind us were facing in this direction too. So I thought this was absolutely beautifully handled and showed a lot of really good decision making. But these moments just keep happening where I feel like I can just feel the car thinking through the situation and doing what it wants to do. Like here, for example, I disengaged so I can put it on the direct path of this construction zone. And as soon as I engage full self-driving, I can almost hear it like, silly human, this isn't the way we're supposed to go. Let me help you out here. Version 13 would have absolutely never done anything like that. It really is feeling more and more like version 14 has a mind of its own. And I know you're probably watching this like, why the heck haven't they sent this wide? I want this on my car, but there is actually a massive reason that we're gonna have to talk about, because I don't think you're gonna want this on your day-to-day car. And we're gonna talk about that right after I tell you about this video's sponsor, Delete Me. Something nobody ever told me about buying a house, or any large purchase for that matter, is just how quickly massive amounts of your personal information wind up absolutely everywhere. I received a massive spike in spam phone calls during that period, and I'm not even kidding you, had junk mail in our mailbox addressed to me before our move-in date. They work fast. And that's where Delete Me comes in. They track down data brokers, which are shady websites and people who collect and sell your information to other shady people and websites, and kind of flip the script by spamming them with legal letters on your behalf, demanding that your personal data is removed from all of their databases. You get to see Delete Me's entire process, with reports coming in every few months showing which databases you've been identified in, what specific information they have on you, and what part of the removal process they're in. Using my special link in the description or the QR code that's on the screen now, you can get 20% off all their consumer plans, which is a pretty solid deal. A big thanks to Delete Me for sponsoring this video, and back to the drive. Alright, so going back to why this is probably the biggest update ever and the robots are becoming alive, which is bringing us closer than ever to Robotaxi, but you might not want it on your car. This update has a big problem, which I believe is the sole reason it hasn't been pushed out wider, and that is that phantom braking, hesitation, and indecisive lane changes are back in a big way. It drives like it's seen some shit, almost like it's now aware of just how dangerous driving actually is, and is constantly looking for any type of danger and then making split-second decisions. And I mean split-second, faster than human reactions, whether to control for what it perceives as danger or not, which can feel pretty uncomfortable. This is an example of it controlling for a real danger, which is somebody backing out of their driveway. And I show you this example so that you can see just how fast the decision-making has gotten in this update. I'd say superhuman. It not only started controlling for the backing up car before I even saw it, but you can see it also switch back and forth on whether to try to pass it or stop, depending on what the car was doing, because they initially were backing up pretty quick and then kind of stopped and then gave another gas pedal press and backed up quick again. So instant, split-second decision making here. And while that example was probably appropriate, I mean, I don't know if I would have done the same thing in the same circumstance, but I can understand why it did it. There are some times where it seems to be split between two decisions for unknown reasons. You can see traffic stops suddenly ahead and there's traffic backing up behind us, and it can't decide if it wants to switch lanes or not. You see it switch back and forth like 10 times, and that is something that may not get across on video, but it is something that you can actually feel in the car. You can also see it notice very early on that this lane is closed ahead of us, so really early reaction time and a good job merging into a good spot here, which is definitely something that's vastly improved in this version, is how far out it's making its decisions. But anyways, back to the indecision in its decision making. It's really hard to get across on video. I very specifically remember this moment while we were approaching the crest and the car kind of jabbed on the brakes, and I remember being like, yeah, I'm gonna show that in the video as an example. But looking back, it didn't even drop 1 mile per hour. These little jabs on the brake are so quick, literally only last a fraction of a second. You can see the nose of the car dive down a little bit there, so it's definitely getting into the brakes, but it happens so fast it doesn't even lose 1 mile per hour of speed. And these little micro jabs, when it's split between two decisions, happen pretty frequently. My wife did a single drive on version 14 and said she hopes it doesn't get sent to her Model 3 in this state, which is honestly understandable. This version is great for nerds and the people interested in autonomy, but I don't think this is an update my mom would like, because the second it jabs the brakes for something you may have not even noticed, it would make her uncomfortable and not trust it nearly as much. Just in the same way that if you were riding with an Uber and the driver jammed on the brakes for no reason or started changing lanes and then swerved back to its original lane for no reason, you'd probably stop trusting the driver. So this kind of stuff definitely needs a layer of polish before a super wide release. I see a lot of comments saying, man, I have a road trip coming up, I really hope I get version 14 soon, but be careful what you wish for, because especially for long road trips, version 13 is probably a much better driver assist feature, as it's smoothed out and super comfortable already. But one thing is for sure, version 14 is the better robo-taxi. I have had 0 safety critical interventions since installing version 14, and that's not just me, it's everybody that I've spoken to with version 14 installed on their car, all basically saying the same thing. And that's with driving for hours and hours on the most difficult narrow roads that I could possibly find. A lot of humans avoid this area completely because it makes them nervous to drive so close to people. The disengagements that I am having are kind of funny ones. Like here, I thought that I had the car in drop-off mode, but it's actually park in the driveway mode, as you can kind of see. So I was wondering what the heck it was doing as it was pulling up to this house. Like, man, this is really trying to find a close drop-off point, but no, it was actually backing up to be right next to the Model Y in the driveway. So yeah, venturing way too far off course there, trying to get back to where I belong. Sorry if you're the one who owns that house. But yeah, definitely seems like the safety level of version 14 has been dialed up to 11, which kind of makes sense with the stuff that I showed you with the micro braking. It seems to be having the better safe than sorry attitude, but especially around vulnerable road users like cyclists and pedestrians, I find that it's doing a really good job of going fairly slow and giving them as much room as it possibly can. There's always a lot of debate in the comments about how it handles these cyclist interactions. I can just say it seems to be doing the human thing every time, which is really all I can ask for. California law, which is where we're driving right now, is giving at least 3 feet to cyclists, and it's doing much more than that every single time. Definitely is some room for debate though, like especially in this situation where it's crossing double yellows and kind of going into the oncoming lane for a moment to get by them. Like, this is just how humans drive around here. That other guy just completely expected it. So, I mean, I'm fine with that, but, you know, always room for debate, I suppose. I've also noticed some new features I first noticed in my rides in Robotaxi in Austin, specifically its ability to abandon the navigation route depending on what it's seeing. So we have a right turn in our navigation route here, and the right-hand side of the road is blocked off. Even though it has plenty of room where it could go into the oncoming lane to get around it, it doesn't and just finds a new way to the destination, which is honestly fine with me. Seems to be following the better safe than sorry philosophy that version 14 has. Another area that has seen massive improvement is pinch points with oncoming cars and narrow roads. And it's crazy for me to say that because I remember saying how crazy version 13.2 was and how I didn't realize it could get any better than that. That was the very first intervention-free drive I've had through this area. But somehow every single interaction I've had with another car has been handled absolutely input for input flawlessly, smoothly, assertive when it needs to be, like here where it's basically telling this car like, nah, you're backing up. Like it's unbelievable. I always thought that this area is a place that I could come back to again and again to make the car struggle almost no matter what, because humans struggle through here all the time. Like zero struggles whatsoever. It just seems to know what to do, even when sudden things appear like that. Like it doesn't even knock off the momentum. It just keeps the momentum up and keeps on going. It also seems to understand what other vehicles will do, just like humans do. Like you'll see two cars approaching us here and one pulls off to the side. Look how quickly it's releasing the brake and continuing forward, way before the second car was out of our path. Unbelievable. And of course there's this clip that I teased in the beginning of the video, but there is some nuance here that you might not have noticed. Not only is the car immediately getting all the way off into the right hand side of the road where all the leaves are, watch as it moves forward as the truck is passing us to get the rear end even more out of his way, and just how quickly it's shifting into reverse and back into gear. Absolutely wild. I honestly, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I mean, they have to be training full self-driving off this specific area, right? Like I don't get, if that's not the case, how it can be so good through here. I remember not too long ago, we had like 6 or 7 Berkeley drives in a row where we couldn't get through one video without getting honked at, and definitely couldn't get through a video without a critical intervention of some kind. But just look at it now. Like the negotiations it's having with these vehicles. Like you see how it's stopping super early here to give this person room to pull off to the side of the road. He gave us a wave as we went by. I mean, what do I even say about this anymore? This next clip is the closest I have let full self-driving ever get to another vehicle or objects. And I let it go when I normally would have disengaged in the past, because it is kind of proven to me through the time that I'm using it that it has the skills to deal with this kind of stuff. But we are inches away from the trash can and inches away from the truck. Absolutely unreal. There's one last example of oncoming traffic that I want to show you just because I thought it was pretty cool. Off to the right, it's just gravel. So we're actually moving off the road completely right now to give room to this Model Y. I know it's kind of difficult to see from this camera view, but we are completely off the road passing them. I think for the first time ever, I would feel perfectly comfortable scooching over to the passenger seat and supervising from over there. Like if that was allowed, like they kind of do with the cars in Austin, where the person has some type of switch to control the car, I would totally start filming these videos from the passenger seat. I truly do believe that this is the version that's going to get us to the first level 3 features that Tesla offers, and also probably the version that's going to take the safety monitors out of the passenger seat of the robo-taxis. I know there is a ton of stuff that I haven't covered in this video, including like the destination options and parking, which is a massive part of this update, but I promised myself to try to keep this video under 20 minutes because I know when they get longer than that, people complain. I probably will create a dedicated parking video at some point to show you guys because it is absolutely unbelievable. But I figured there's so many other people showing that capability that I thought I would take my time to kind of remind everybody where we're at right now and how crazy things are getting with AI. And especially Tesla AI. They absolutely cooked with this update. I've had a lot of intervention-free drives with version 13 and was legitimately wondering if I'd be able to tell a difference between that and version 14 on my first drives, and yeah, the answer is definitely yes. They were somehow able to add 10 times the parameters, which kind of equates to 10 times the context, and still reduce the reaction times, which is just unbelievable. I did not think that that was going to be possible. It definitely seems like hardware 4 is nowhere near its current limits. Or maybe it is. I have no idea what they're seeing internally, but from what I'm seeing from the outside is just the amount of performance they were able to squeeze from one update to another, and just how much more the car seems to know about everyday driving. It truly does feel like robo-taxi at home. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry this took so long to get out like always, but I really wanted to take some time to understand version 14 at a slightly deeper level before I started telling the world how I feel about it. And I'm glad that I did because, man, it is really something special. And to be honest, I still don't feel like I've even gotten close to truly stress testing this beast. I can't wait for the bugs to be worked out so you can all experience it for yourselves. Trust me, you're in for a treat. Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring this video, and until next time, everybody, bye.